Well, hey there. Today I'm here with my friend Adrian Figgins. And I know what you're thinking, right? Corey's from Texas. And so he has a biased, opinion and pull on a guy that's wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. And you'd be exactly right. So we want to hear your story, but I'm just saying this got you in the door big time. So well done. Really, this is my friend Adrian. And how long have you been well, I don't know. How would you answer how long you've been at PBC?
We've been here over about 2 years now.
Yeah.
But I guess I got grandmothered in.
Yeah, you did.
From my grandmother, who's passed now, Ernestine Feltz, that I'm sure a lot of people at PBC have met, known, and been a part with. So.
Oh man, loved Ernestine, and she passed away right before COVID started,
Yes, sir,
right? Yeah. And got kind of reconnected to Adrian at that. It's been cool how God has brought you here. And God has done a great redemption of a near-death illness in Adrian's life. And so we're here to tell that story about what God has done. So tell them, any more about yourself, and let's launch into that story of how God has worked.
Sure, yeah. Well, I was born in Leesburg but raised in West Virginia, so I guess that's where I get a little bit of my country roots.
Yeah.
My family background's from Kentucky, though, so that's where a little bit of the cowboy hat, cowboy boots come about.
And I respect it. I'm all in with it.
But yeah, I was raised by a single mother who instilled in me hard work, dedication, and the love for Jesus early on. I was saved at about 7, and of course, if you know my granny, so she's very instilled in us who Jesus is, where we need to put our faith, to not have fear, and to trust in the Lord. And I really didn't know how much I was going to need that teaching until I had to go through what I went through.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about the illness, and when did it start and what happened?
So in 2014, I was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease called pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. It's a kind of a 1 in a million. I think there's about 500 people in the nation that have it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was one of the lucky ones to get that. But they misdiagnosed it for so long that I was 265 pounds, and by the time they got down to the actual diagnosis, I was 208, and I was wheelchair bound.
Wow.
They did a biopsy, figured out that's what it was. The local doctors around here couldn't handle it, so they sent me to the University of Maryland. And I met with a doctor there who actually did his thesis on my disease. So right there, God was already working in a situation we had no control over. So the standard treatment for it is called a lavage. Basically, they put you under, and they close off one lung, and they do almost like a power wash. They just keep washing it until the liquid comes clean. What it is surfactant in our lungs that is normal for everyone else, builds up in mine to the point where I can be on oxygen or even bedridden, which I've noticed and done all those things. So. But I've had 23 lavages.
Wow.
To the point where there wasn't a lot of hope left for what to do. They had tried a few other things, and nothing was working. And at that point, when you see desperation in a doctor's eyes, then you really start to worry.
Right.
And that went on for years. My worst year was 2018. And they finally said, well, we're going to have to look at lung transplant. It's kind of the final thing. And a lung transplant evaluation and meeting is probably one of the scariest things that anyone will ever have to go through, and I pray that not many people do. They basically told you, you may not survive this. There's a chance that you're probably not going to, but we're going to give it a shot. And I remember going home just defeated, and my wife and I got to the point where we're like, you know what? We're just going to surrender this to God.
Yeah.
We're going to give this to God. Whatever the outcome is, it's in His hands.
Yeah.
Whether it be He takes me home, or whether it be He heals me, that was we just left it up to Him.
Sure.
Because we couldn't do anything else with it. It's just out of our control.
Wow. So how did the Lord show up in the middle of all that?
It's funny, when you look back on it, He was always there, but in those low moments is kind of when the high moments came about. He just kind of, as far as like, every doctor was just the right doctor, and they knew exactly what to do. And then when the lung transplant was the only option, several of my doctors were like, well, we have these couple medicines, we have this couple treatments we could try. No one's ever really done them. You kind of be a guinea pig, but would you be willing? And of course, when your options are no, you kind of say yes. So through those, I've actually slowly started to get better, slowly started to get better. And like I said, with every trial that you kind of go through a valley, the Lord bring it up to a mountaintop. So, I went from not being able to get out of bed on my max was 16 liters of oxygen, extra oxygen, to being able to. I remember slowly, I had a cane. I would just take little steps, and because I had to rebuild my muscles. I had to rebuild everything to try to be normal again. I remember the first shower I could take on my own without my wife helping me. It was such a victory, and being able to. I had a walker. I walked in the hospital. Just to walk from the car to the hospital, we give God all the glory for that, and we always looked at just the smallest things that people would be like, well, what do you mean you walk? So that's just a common thing. Or my oxygen level wouldn't be in the 80s; it went to the 90s. I remember when we saw 90 on my concentrators and things like that. We were so excited for that. When it would be dropped down from 16 to 10 to 8 to 3, as far down as it would go, into where I am now. It was such a victory. Just those little things are what really showed God was there the whole time.
Wow. Well, I mean, what an incredible story. How have you seen God using this? Because we know He wastes nothing. So how's God using this in your life?
Well, when you kind of take a step back, it's almost like I get to hit the reset button. So I can no longer do the job I was doing. I can no longer do the things that I thought were important to me. What I thought was lost, I've actually gained, because now I get an opportunity to focus on the Lord, focus on what He wants me to do, and keep surrendering to Him. And through that, we found PBC. Through that, we found I've been able to, be in my Bible more, and actually just take a whole new career path that involves Him.
Yeah. So tell me about coming to PBC, because that happened right kind of in the middle of a lot of this. What's it been like being at PBC? How has it helped you?
Right. My wife and I started watching online,
Yep.
Because that was kind of in the middle of COVID, and with the lung disease, they tell you just stay in the house, don't go out and do anything. It's hate for you to get sick. So started watching online, and even then, we could just feel God's presence. We could feel through the teachings you were doing, through the worship, just everything was just what we were looking for. And then once, I think it was Easter, it had an early Easter. That was the first time we were able to come in person. And I remember just my wife and I leaving and being like, this is it. I feel like this is our home church.
Wow.
Then that's when we looked into Growth Track and things like that. So, but you guys have I think it's the focus on community. I think it's the focus on you can be broken, you can be hurting, and have a place that you can come and not be judged and to be loved on. And I think that's the thing is, when we walk through that door, from the time we come in, the time we leave, everybody treats you like they've known you for their entire life. And I think that's something that's missing in a lot of churches. It's just that love.
Yeah.
And that Christ love,
Wow. Well, I'm so glad you're here, man. I really am. And after knowing your granny, I know that she'd be pretty glad too. And incredible to see what God has done in your life. This is Adrian's story. He's got his I Have a Story shirt on, going well, I might add, with his cowboy boots and his cowboy hat. And if you're watching today and you've got a story, we'd love to hear it. You can go to our website, and there's a button there on the QR code. You can go there, and it says, I Have a Story. We'd love to hear what your story is. Adrian, thank you. Really appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.